Welcome to another episode of Behind the Dreamers. I'm Jennifer Loading, and we are talking to the achievers, the creators, the magic makers, and the dreamers. These are our friends, these are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. Well, super excited. We are in studio today, and that means we have Chloe on the set, which is going to be super excited. And I'm excited to bring our guest on today. But just to give you a little preview before we get him on here, he says he's a community builder. He says he builds champions. He's a veteran. And get this, he also has a full working farm with goats, chickens, ducks, turkeys, geese, you name it, he's got it. So we're super excited to chat with him today. But before we bring him on, we need to do a shout out to our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Photography. If you are a creator needing post-production, consultation, or promotion, Walt Mills is your guy. Whether short films, YouTube films, photography work, or a new headshot, he can help you find a solution to match your needs. To learn more about Walt and his work, go to photosbywalt.com. We also want to give a shout out to Chris Clow of Upbeat Media Productions. If you are in need of turnkey special event production, Chloe is your go-to. You can learn more about him and his work at upbeatmediapro.com. All right, it is time to bring our guest on today. Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
I just want to do the same cool thing that he did, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I know. He's got it all going on over there. That's why we like to come in studio. We get the little extras, the little fun stuff. All right, Donnie Boivin is an entrepreneur and serves as CEO and founder of Success Champion and Success Champion Networking. Donnie is considered one of the leading global minds on sales, business development, and business growth. He makes sales and business development relatable and human. His podcast, Growth Mode, ranks among the top podcasts globally. He's a 5-time best-selling author and a highly sought-after public speaker. So welcome to the show, Donnie. We are super excited to have you here today.
Jennifer, I've been looking forward to this. Love hanging out with you, babe. We always have a great conversation. So I think we'll have some fun diving in and see if we can't drive some value to you listeners.
Hey, absolutely. I'm excited to chat with you. So, all right, I want to open this up because you got like so much going on. You got this podcast, you got this Success Champion Networking thing going on. So tell us a little bit about what you're up to right now, what you're doing to help your people and out there serving the community, really.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we have 3 companies all together, but everything comes from the place of all the shit I wish somebody would have told me as I was coming up building a business. Building a business is by far the toughest thing I've ever done in my life. You take 4 years in the Marine Corps, 20 years straight commission sales, and that's a cakewalk compared to building a company. And oftentimes as I was building my businesses, when it got dark, when business wasn't doing really well, I put myself on an island because I didn't want anybody to know how bad it was. I didn't want people to know, how much I was screwing up. And that became a pretty damn lonely place. And what I realized is the moment that I started sharing my stories and the things that I was screwing up, people started leaning in. So we designed everything to literally teach the things that I wanted to know. I mean, we fixed how the world networks by creating these phenomenal networking groups that have become the fastest growing networking organization on the planet right now. We have 55 chapters across the U.S. We're launching 47 more. We got 3 in Canada, 6 more in Canada. We're opening the Philippines. We're riding a bolt of lightning with these right now. We do the Champions Table Mastermind, where we teach all the business things that nobody was out there teaching me. And then we have the Badass Business Summit, where we bring a bunch of people together and literally get them to work on their business at the conference. So everything is, we tell it all, we share it all, and we just give it all away as much as we possibly can. It's been fun to build.
Yeah. Well, and you said something I think that was really interesting here, talking about all of the mistakes, because you're right, building a business is hard. I don't know how long you've been an entrepreneur, but I feel like I've been in this space for like 23 years, and it's a non-linear process, right? It's very much an ebb and flow and learning what's working, what's not working, and being a long-term thinker, right? Like you've got to think long-term to weather this because it is hard. And so I'm impressed with that, that part of it sticking out. But I think also you said something that was really great is showing the people, when you become authentic and show the people where the mistakes are, and you can put that forward, because I think people can then relate to what you're going, what you went through, and they can take that and apply it to where they are at that moment.
Yeah, 100%. I remember the first podcast that I went on, and a guy asked me what was the toughest moment in my life, and I said the day I walked out to my farm, I walked out the back door, and my wife's Jeep was gone, and I
Mm.
called the police, and I said I think my Jeep's been stolen. And they said no, sir, your Jeep's been repossessed. And at that point, I knew I was gonna have to go in and tell my wife the rest of the damn story, which was the mortgage was also 3 months behind, and I just got my first letter that they may possibly foreclose on the house. And she had to go in on that Monday morning and cash in her 401k to literally save our farm, get her Jeep back. And I love sharing that story out there with people because, all you get to see is the Instagram stories of all the success people. You always get to
Right,
see the
right.
good side of things. And nobody is ever out there sharing, dude, this shit is hard. There's a lot of work here. And for me, I spent most of my life unintentionally looking for an easy button. It just sounded like going to conferences, self-help things, reading books, and I really thought got to a place where I got into that belief of if I tell myself I'm going to be a millionaire, I'm going to be a millionaire. If I tell myself I'm awesome, I'm going to be awesome. And all these things, and most of that stuff's just absolute bullshit. Because until you start getting punched in the face, until you start putting yourself out there and breaking things so you can learn, you're never going to figure out what you're meant to be and what you're trying to build. So, and for me, that's why I share the stories the way I share them, because you got one side of the world that's like, think happy thoughts and you'll be happy. And you got the other people that are more realistic. They're like, look, dude, you can think those happy thoughts. That's great. Now let's go fuck some things up. Let's go do the things that we need to do and actually get in the game and actually like do the reach outs to people that you need to be talking to be potentially clients. Let's get on Zoom calls. Let's go do the actual work and let's fuck all that up so you can figure out what your business actually is.
Yeah, and that's what I always tell everybody: failure equals learning.
Mm-hmm.
So until you fail, you're not going to learn a whole bunch. You're going to have to fail a whole bunch to get to where you want to be. As long as you're trying to get to
that
that.
a little bit.
Okay.
I want to reframe that. So when people hear failure, they always go to the extremes. Like, okay,
True.
so I got to fucking lose it all, right? To get. I don't want people to wrap their head around failure. I want them to wrap their head around the idea that shit's gonna break. And here's what I mean: you're gonna do a reach out to somebody, like maybe send a private message on LinkedIn. That person rejects you. That's not a failure. It broke. You didn't do the reach out right. Okay.
Okay.
So
Makes sense.
what I want people to understand is go break things, because you only really fail if you throw in the fucking towel and quit.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just a moment. So if they look at life as an experiment, means you got to go try things, and when something doesn't doesn't work, take a step back and go, okay, where did it screw up? What did I say wrong? What did I do wrong? How did I say it wrong? And then go, okay, can I tweak it? And then go back and do it again. And that next reach out might get a little better, right? And in that moment, it's not a failure. It's an experiment that you're trying. Things are breaking and you're learning from them.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes perfect sense.
I would agree with you on that too, because I talk about that too. I don't really, when I'm working with clients, because people are a lot of times are very black and white. Like it's either an all or nothing, right? It's like something bad happens and they're like, I'm done. That was the bad thing that happened. And I'm always like, as an entrepreneur, we just know stuff's going to happen, right? Like I just assume every day there's going to be a fire burning and we just have to put that out, right? Like that's part of this process. And I think that's how we grow. So I very much agree with that idea that, failure is not the word. We really want to go with this idea that this is part of the process. And I really like the breaking. I think that that's a really good a metaphor for that. I think it's a great metaphor for that whole thing. But I think Chloe's on the same page with us on that whole thing. I think he's got the same idea, and that idea that we don't throw in the towel. There is no plan B. We just keep going, right? You just keep going, you keep working, and you keep plugging away until you get where you need to be. And it's a process because
100%.
I don't know if you guys are like on the journey that I'm on. I'm just on a journey every day. I mean, I just keep going. And I'm somewhere in the middle. I like some of that fairy tale pixie dust stuff, but I'm pretty practical too when it comes to it. I own my crap. Like I know every day, stuff's going to happen and I own it. I just like the pixie dust every once in a while too.
Right.
And on the pixie dust side of things, I'm going to use that from here on out because I like that idea. But, would rather people lean that direction than not have it
Yeah.
at all, right?
Right.
And there is some truth to how you talk to yourself as what you're going to become. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is because people, J.K. Rowling said, rock bottom's the foundation of which I built my life. Because people have never actually had anything that forced them to get in the game. They've always figured out how to coast. They've always figured out how to do just enough to get by. I'm a prime example of that for 40 years of my life. Until you get to a point where you got no choice but to move forward because you've hit as bottom as you go. And for most people, unfortunately, you got to get to that place because we've figured out how to half-ass life. We've figured out how to coast. And unfortunately, for most people, you're going to have to get punched in the face so damn hard, you got no choice but to fight. And I can tell you for me, looking at my wife and telling her, babe, we're about to lose everything we freaking own, that was a dark moment. But it was also the greatest moment of my life because now I had to win. It was like, Adrian in the Rocky movies looking at Rocky and say, win. I had no choice but to get after it. And I tell you, being an entrepreneur, we're the craziest dumb people on earth. Because the only people that are willing to get up every day and go, oh, let me get punched in the face today and smile. And then the second side of that is success is only found by the people who are too dumb to quit. We stay in the game longer where most people, and logic says you should throw in the towel, go back and get a job. The only people that won are the ones that stayed in the game and they never quit.
Yeah.
They kept screwing up until they figured it out.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I agree with you. I agree. I think you have to do hard things. And when I always talk about that, because I think when we get pinned against the wall is when we make change. And it's making me, as I'm working through this program I'm going through right now, I'm thinking about this whole reptilian brain thing, because you've said several times about how, we coast. And that is because we have this nice little part of our brain, this reptilian part of our brain that's on overdrive all the time. And it works on a subconscious every single day. It's driving our emotions, our actions, our thought processes, right? And the way that we have to get around that is we have to be consciously aware to navigate around it. So you said that several times, and I'm thinking that just keeps coming to my mind. That reptilian brain is like on the drive every day. It's taking care of the safety. It pulls us back to safety all the time, right? And if we're doing things that they can be toxic or not toxic. If they make us feel safe, we revert to them. That's why people stay in bad relationships and do things that are not healthy for them, because it's safety, right? No different in entrepreneurship. I mean, think about it. We're doing scary things every day. We got to talk to people that we don't know. We have to do the things that others don't want to do. And that part of our brain is like, you fool, what are you doing?
Well, you take it even... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's great to think about is next year, May, I will be being as dumb as possible to have been in this business for 25 years now and doing it all on my own. So that's awesome.
Yeah, Chris and I are about like right there at the same. We've been fools for a long time. We've been having, but listen, I think this is maybe phasing into my next question that I want to ask Donnie, because would you not agree that at the same time, being an entrepreneur is like the best thing, right? There are so many great things about being an entrepreneur. You get your freedom. You get to decide whom you choose to work with, how you do your business, how you conduct your life, right?
And sometimes it's crazy how unintentionally you will affect someone's life, then you don't realize that you've done that until someone actually steps forward and says like, hey man, when you gave me that chance like 10 years ago to do this, here's where I am today. And you're like, man, that is awesome. It's
Exactly.
it's a great feeling.
That's like a mic drop.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. So Donnie, I do want to ask you, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I say what's fascinating about all that is, and I want your entrepreneur listeners to hear this, that a lot of people hear that you can choose your own hours, work your own time, and do the things you want to do. And I want them to understand one thing. You can do that once you've made it.
Yeah.
But up until the point that you actually have a business that's functioning and covering your freedom number, and what I mean by your freedom number is that exact amount of revenue coming into your business on a monthly basis that allows you to live, not survive, not thrive, but live. Once you cover that freedom number, then the real work actually begins. But people hear that you can work the hours you want to work when you want to work and everything else. And I know this is not what you're saying, Jennifer, but
Yeah.
uh, they hear that and they think that they're going to be able to work part time to build the life that they want to build. And the truth of the matter is, you're going to work harder building a business than anything you've ever done in your life. And if you don't build a business, all you're going to do is build a crappy job for yourself and be a slave to what you're doing because you actually just didn't put it all together. So,
Yeah.
I'm not the hustle and grind guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I am the wake up, get punched in the face, and do the work until the work's done guy.
Yeah.
And people don't want to hear that. They want to hear I can set my own hours. And once again, I know it's not what you're saying, right? They want that easy button, and the lure of being able to create that life is what they're all hearing and like, oh my God, I want to do that, not knowing that being an entrepreneur is the greatest way to meet yourself. Because when you've got, down to it, at the end of the day, you're going to get to a point where you run out of excuses. You're going to
Yeah.
get to a point when you realize, as an employee, you can literally use excuses all over the place. But when it's your own business, there ain't no excuses left. It's on you. Your
Yeah.
success, that's your fault. Your failure, that's also your fault. And the quicker you own that, the quicker you'll go. But
Yeah.
build a
That
company.
personal responsibility, I think, comes with that. But yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And I think there is a lot of misconceptions that people think, well, I come in, I can set my hours. That might be 4 hours a day. No, you got to be willing to put in the work to do the business. And, and I think that's what separates. When Jay Mamie was on our show, remember, Chloe talked about the wannapreneurs.
The wantrepreneur.
The wannapreneurs. I always say, when people come on our show, there's always something I take away. There's something they say, terminology, something. I'll be like, that's not quite how I would have said it, but that I'm thinking the exact same thing. But his thing was the difference between entrepreneurs and wannapreneurs. And we know who they are, and I think as a whole, yes, we look for the easy way to do things. So I think that's what's going to separate the people from making it and that don't make it is the difference in their work ethic and if they show up and they keep persisting and doing the whatever you want to call it, grind, whatever it is, terminology, right? But the bottom line is, yeah, you're setting your hours, but you need to show up and do those hours. You need to figure out what it is to get that job done and show up and do the work. I'm not lying about that. We might pixie dust that a little bit, but there is truth there, right? So, Donnie, I do want to ask you because, talking in all of this pragmatic and realist way, I think this is a fun question because I think our audience would like to know this. So what is it that absolutely keeps you in the game with this all the time?
I don't believe in goal setting. And there's actually been a lot of cool science behind this recently, and they've come out and they said that, goal setting doesn't work for most people. Some people it does, right? But it doesn't work for most people because what happens when they set a goal, they visualize themselves completing that goal, and the brain, that reptilian brain you were talking about, it shifts off and said, okay, it's accomplished, it's done. I don't know. People, unfortunately, when they set goals. So I'm not a goal setter, but I do believe in having a reason. So, I do all of this to give my wife the life that she's never had, and allow her to live the journey. And so for me, if I don't want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go walk the farm so I can get some exercise in, if I don't want to do the reach outs, if I don't want to do this, then I just lean back on thinking about my wife not being able to live the life she's living. And that's my driving force. I would love to tell the world that yes, it's to help as many people find business freedom. There's a lot of truth to that, but that's my purpose. That's not my reason for doing all this, right? My reason is that my wife can go see the places she's never seen before. She can have the experiences that she's never had before. And this is way bigger than a why. A why is something selfish for you. A reason is that driving thing behind it all. So I tell everybody, man, have that massive fucking vision that just lights you up. And you got your vision right when other people want to help you build it. Have that vision in front of you and then find the reason to do nothing but drive towards that vision. Yeah. Don't set goals because goals are going to demotivate 90% of the population because their brain has not ever accomplished a lot of the goals. It's like 1% of the world is actually driven by goals. right? The rest of us, we've got to find ways to find these micro wins along the way. Maybe it's calling them milestones, but finding the micro wins over and over again, and then having that reason to push you till you can fulfill a portion of that vision and then go after the rest.
Yeah. All right. So good stuff, Donnie. All good, good. And yes, I do agree. You do need to have a why and you need to have something to in this because you have to own it. And if you're, just stuck on a goal, especially if it's somebody else's goal and not your own, yeah, it doesn't work. It never works. So
one of my friends said something that I actually liked. He says you got to name it to claim it.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with
I
that.
agree. All right. So tell us a little bit about this podcast. What's going on with this?
So my first podcast ever launched, the one off, we don't even produce anymore. And it still gets tens and 20s of thousands of downloads a month on it. It wasn't feeding the business. And what I realized is we were getting the pleasure of interviewing some of the top name people from around the world. And it was great. I was learning a lot from those type of people and sharing their stories, but it wasn't feeding the business. So we flipped the script and we launched Growth Mode to go straight at teaching all the things that, Kevin and I, who's the COO, co-founder of Success Champion Networking, it's just him and I each week kind of coming from this introverted, extroverted, visionary implementer, style of things. And we talk all about sales, business development, business growth. We lay it all on a line of the things that we're struggling with as we still continue to grow. We talk about all of our struggles, kind of getting to this point. And the whole idea is people can jump in and find, just like you, little nuggets of things that they can instantly apply and use in their business. And, so you got two veterans that bust all the way through it. So we have a good time doing that. But it's really tactical takeaways and quick 30-minute segments. We've done it live twice now, once at the Badass Business Summit last year in front of a live audience. It was so awesome. And then we did it this year at the Badass Business Summit, which that episode should be coming out here pretty soon. But it's a cool thing that when you can share things that helped you along the way with no idea of trying to sell anything, just teaching and pouring into people very much like you do.
Yeah, very good. Very good. So where do you see all this going? Anything new coming out or just going to keep plugging away and growing and doing these summits?
We are adding a lot of things. Some of the things aren't rolled out yet. But with the networking groups going as fast as they are, we're starting to do mini summits around the U.S. We'll be in Cincinnati in March. We'll probably be in the DC area in, I think, June or July. So, and we'll be in Atlanta in July, doing another mini summit down there. But my biggest ambition is to help all these people that got an island, made themselves into an island by not having a community of people they can be a part of. So in the long run of things, Success Champions will continue to change how the world networks. We'll continue doing these phenomenal summits until I can fill Dallas Cowboy Stadium. We will continue to do the podcast, but we've got a lot of other things underneath the Success Champion label that'll be coming out. Probably not next year. Well, we'll be launching an entire sales training program next year. And after that, we've got a ton more content and courses and things coming that are all a part of Success Champion Networking. Because, I've done a lot of networking and a lot of really bad networking.
Yeah.
So we continue to just find cool ways to pour into the community as a whole.
That's awesome.
That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
And I know a great guy that could help with all of your production needs for all that stuff, even when you get to
Good. Let me
AT&T
introduce you
Stadium
to
size.
DJ Gene. Let me introduce you to Gene Roman, who handles all my production stuff.
Good
That's
stuff.
pretty good. introduction.
Hey,
for you.
Donnie, it's been fun. It's fun watching and seeing all this happen because I just think, from the other side, it's, as entrepreneurs, they get to see all these things and it's really neat. I mean, just to see, you're growing with that because I saw you kind of in the beginning when you were starting to form all that networking. And I agree with you that networking, communities are huge and they're important. They're an important part of what we do. And I always find it interesting when people don't think that they need to be a part of it, some kind of a community, because I think you do. I think, learning from other people, even outside of your market, your niche, you can learn a lot of insight and take away things that you may not find in your own, in your own specific niche that you're working in, right? So I think what you're doing is fun. I love watching all your growth and seeing your posts and seeing what's going on the other side. But I do have one fun question I want to ask you before we do these rapid fire, because I just want to see what he's going to say on this. So, Donnie,
I got a gift for your audience too.
Oh, do you? Good. Well, you're going to have to tell us that. So if you were going to sum yourself up in one word, what would that be?
God, the first word that comes to mind is badass.
I wanted to see what he was going to say.
First word that comes to mind, but I think, if I were talking to myself, I would just say driven. Man, I think for a lot of years I was trying to find out who I was and discover, what's my biggest purpose in this world. And, now that I've figured it out and know what I'm doing, I've always been kind of a driven guy and always been somewhat an achievement side of things. But now that we just have such a massive vision, it's kind of like hold my beer and watch this shit because it's going to get crazy from here.
Hold my beer. That's good stuff. Hey, I think the words work. It's good, and it's your word. I just think that's a fun question, because it's like when you, I don't know, maybe I know you worked in the corporate side of things before. Am I correct? You did corporate before you did all this. So,
20 years.
when we used to have to go into interviews and they'd ask you those kinds of questions, like how, about yourself. And a lot of people struggle with that, how to describe themselves. And so I always think that's just kind of a fun question. I like to hear what people come up with about themselves.
It made me think.
Yeah, it was good. I didn't prep you on that one, but you did good.
No,
You did good.
I like it.
You did good. All right. Well, we're going to do some fun questions, and we're going to let you talk about that offer or whatever that is that you got going on because we want to know about it. But I think we need to do a few fun questions. Don't you think, Chloe?
For sure. And I also want to know where I can get an awesome shirt and hat like he's got there. Where can I get the cool merch?
All right. Yeah.
DonnieBoivin.com. Just click on the store.
There you go.
Awesome.
All right. To our listeners, you can go there and get some merchandise. All right, Chloe, do you have a question you want to start with?
I do. Since his military background, I want to know, what is the first firearm you ever shot?
Ooh.
22 Winchester, little pump action. Looks, the old show like The Rifleman.
Yeah.
My first gun that I ever shot was actually as a kid with the looks like the rifleman's gun, but it was the 22.
Same here. That's
squirrel
actually
hunt.
hilarious. Same exact. I got a nickel plated one as a kid.
It's a good question. We've never asked that question.
Mine was definitely just the wooden stock and the black barrel, but it was definitely just a little chamber one, like one round shot.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. I want to ask this question because I know you have this farm. Okay, Donnie, did you grow up in the city? Are you city boy or are you country boy?
So it's fascinating. I didn't get on a farm until I was 5 years old. And so from ages 5 to 11, I lived on a 500-acre farm in Kansas. We didn't own the land. We rented a house on the farm, on the farm, and we did 4-H and all that stuff. But after the age of 11, we moved to Texas, and then I lived in the suburbs up until 2016. Elizabeth and I moved out here to the farm. So, I didn't know that I wanted to get back to the country until life got so crazy and busy that I didn't want to people anymore.
Yeah.
So we created our sanctuary out here. I really used to be a people person, but people screwed that all up.
Right.
Well, what's coming to mind is like you can't take, how they always say, like you can't take the country out of the boy or whatever, like your roots always come back to find you somehow.
That's funny you said that about people. They're one of my favorite little TikToks is this guy. He goes, the people that I really dislike are the people. And that's it. That's all.
Oh, we all have our moments, right? Even I say that sometimes, is everybody likes to say I'm an extrovert, but I think I've learned a new term, and I don't know if y'all have heard about this, but I think I'm more of an ambivert because I can go either way. When I've had too many people, I'm introverted. I need time off. People start getting on my nerves after a while. I'm like, okay, we need some downtime, Jennifer. Stay out. Call it a timeout.
You put me on a stage. You put me on a stage in front of people. Life's good, right? I can be
Yeah.
up on that stage all day long speaking. You put me into like a group of 2 or 3 people, and I'm as awkward as the next dude. Because
Yeah.
say
You're just like done.
So
Yeah, you're done. Well, maybe you're an ambivert too. It's a new word I learned this past week. I'm always looking for new words. That was a new one. I'm like, is that really a real thing?
There you go.
Well, because this came up, I was with 2 people the other day, and they were like, the one was really, really extroverted, a lot extrovert. And she said to me, I said, I need to process because they were both talking at the same time. And I said, I had 2 ears. They can't listen to both. So I said, I need a moment. And she said, well, I know, because you're an introvert. And I'm like, how? I had to stop for a minute. I'm like,
met you.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, what? So, but then I thought, no, to some people I am an introvert because I do process. I have to sit back sometimes and think for a minute because it's a lot, So that's why I think we're all a little bit of, depending on the situation and whom we're with at the time, right?
Absolutely. And it's funny because I noticed that when Jennifer does go to her introverted state, I always have a tendency to go, are you okay?
Oh.
Is everything all right?
I do. I have moments. Yeah, I have moments where I'm like, I need downtime. I need down. Yes, exactly. All right. Any other questions you want to ask him? We've had so much conversation here. It's been fun.
It's been great. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I do have one.
Okay.
Hey, Donnie, first concert you ever attended?
First concert was 4 bands, the old Dallas Cowboys Stadium. It started off with Days of the New, then went Kid Rock, then Korn, then Metallica.
Oh my goodness.
Metallica lead singer didn't show up, so all the other bands came up on stage and did all the Metallica songs.
Oh.
So so you had Korn singing Metallica, Kid Rock singing Metallica. Kid Rock had David Allan Coe on stage with him even. The little person that's part of the Kid Rock band, he actually read the poem, the Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep. It was so rad to watch them do all this.
Yeah.
And then all the people in the bleachers of old Cowboy Stadium started ripping the seat cushions off during the mosh pits and were throwing them down in a crowd. When we finally left the concert, because we were down on the floor right by stage and all the mosh pits and everything. When we left the concert, you walked out, all the seat cushions from the entire stadium were just stacked up against these walls that you walked out past. It was insane. Yeah, that was my first big concert.
Crazy.
This was 1997 or 6.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I was in the Marine Corps still. I'd come home on leave and went to that.
That was my first tour. I went on.
So you were part of that. Yeah. Wow.
That's
I've seen
crazy.
Korn, but I don't know who I saw them with.
Did what now?
Did you get to go to the makeup conference or the concert that they did at whatever that big amphitheater in Dallas is?
I was only on the road it was Kid Rock and Limp Bizkit. So I was there to support the Kid Rock crew. So when that show came up, I was literally just a production manager. And then we moved.
Gotcha.
And then after that show, I went back with the Limp Bizkit Kid Rock tour for a while.
Fun. Chloe has a lot of stories, cool stories too. He shares something. I find out something new every time. He's like, oh, I didn't know that. It's kind of like Malcolm on the podcast last time. He tells, you didn't hear this. He said he did some stunt work, like stuntman work. I said, you did? Where'd that come from? We love rapid fire questions. This is the best part. We find out all kinds of fun stuff. So, Donnie, tell us a little bit about or how our listeners can find you. And I know you mentioned you have something that you wanted to mention. So tell us about that real quick.
So, and that'll take care of all of it. So one of the things that I found that most business owners don't do is they actually don't do enough business development activities in their world. And so it was about a month and a half ago from this recording that I decided that I needed to do something about my health. I'd put on a little bit of weight and I just, getting older, wasn't taking care of myself. So I decided I was going to get up, walk the farm, and spend 45 minutes each morning walking the farm. So I started doing this, and I have ADHD, so I struggle with focusing on things. And I started listening to podcasts as I was walking the farm. Now I do this at 4 o'clock in the morning. So every morning, 4 o'clock, I'm up walking and listening to a podcast. Well, what happened is because I couldn't really see anything, it's dark as hell. I've got a pistol on my hip, of course, because I'm on a farm and there's critters. And as I'm walking, I can't really see anything. All I can do is focus. And what I found is I was often focusing on my business. And, in 30 days of doing that, I lost 37 pounds and the business grew crazy because I was so focused on the business as a whole that I was able to figure out and come up with a solution to some big things we were trying to accomplish. And in that time frame, we've added 50 new chapters to Success Champions Networking because I was so focused. So because of that, at the Badass Business Summit, I knew people weren't doing enough business development activities. So we rolled out what's called Champions 90, and people can go to champions90.com to do this. It's completely free. We're just giving it away. And what it is you're committing to do 45 minutes of exercise, which you can walk. You're doing 45 minutes of listening to a podcast. I do them together. You don't have to. You do 30 minutes of cold outreach. So that's either cold calling, sending a direct message on LinkedIn, maybe it's sending cold email, maybe it's cold outreach to get on podcasts. I don't care. You're going straight cold where this person doesn't know you to able to get into a conversation about doing business with you. And then you do 30 minutes of hand-raising activities. And hand-raising activities is going to LinkedIn and maybe you're putting out a post or content, or you're engaging on other people's posts, or you're getting on stages and putting out your content. It's the idea of putting out original thought, original content that people can raise their hand and say, I'm interested in doing more. And then you're writing 200 words every day. And what I found for me is committing to those 5 things completely changed the trajectory of our companies. I'm 5 years into this, and we are such on a hockey stick moment that we're focused on infrastructure to hold everything together because I'm just dialed in. And what I know for people is even 30 minutes of cold outreach is 100% more than they're currently doing now in their business. So people have been doing this now for 17, 18 days when we launched the challenge. And you should see the DMs. I mean, if you go to LinkedIn and just hit the hashtag Champions90, you're going to see the post and the people talking about it and how much it's already impacted their business. Even on Facebook, you can go search for the hashtag Champions90 and just watch. And the podcasts that have already come out from people talking about this, because for once in their life, they're actually dialed into doing the things they need to do to actually build them to business freedom. And, I did this for me because I needed something to get me more focused, more in the game. And so in creating Champions 90, man, it's been wild to watch how many people have picked this up. And so we created, Facebook groups and some other private groups and everything, just to get people together to share their stories. And, so it's 90 days, no quit. If you miss a day, you start over. And we've already heard stories from people that are like, shit, I missed my day, so I'm starting back over, which is, part of it. But this isn't like a health or fitness challenge. This is a mental game changer. It's a way to actually upgrade you because you're doing the things every day, 7 days a week. So, I've, put this huge trap for myself out there. I'm like, cool, I'm going to roll this challenge out to the world, give it away for free. I have to do this. And so it's 90 days, no quit. And, I've got some family vacation fixing to come up. I've got some other things fixing to happen. I'm going down to a Ren Fair down in Houston in an upcoming weekend. And there's going to be a lot of drinking, a lot of carrying on. And I'm still doing this Champions 90. So, I got to get my 45 minutes in, exercise, 45 minutes on a podcast. I got to figure out how to do cold outreach while I'm, probably half intoxicated. I'm going to have to figure out how to do content, these hand-raising activities, right? And I still got to write 200 words, and I got to do this because I'm not missing a day doing this shit because I can't ask other people to do something I'm not willing to do myself.
Right.
And so I would just tell your listeners that, man, if you really want to level up your game and you really want to change your business and get to where you've been trying to get to, come do Champions 90. There's no cost, there's no upsells, no webinars, no stupid shit like that. This is literally a completely free challenge for you to say, I'm in the game, I'm going to do this. And what's been fascinating on top of it is watching the people take the 200 words and they're using that as their social content. And it's been brilliant to watch people put out their thoughts. You know, they go listen to a podcast and they get this aha, and they're like, shit. And then they come back and they write about that moment and what they're learning. And God, it's been so cool to watch people pour into me and send me the DMs and the text messages. And it's so champions90.com and come into our world. And that'll get you to our main websites. And you can find all the rest of my information there.
Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. I could see you lighting up there, Donnie. You were getting excited. It's all good. No, I understand that too. I mean, I get it. It makes me, it's kind of like, it's not a fitness thing. I mean, there's a component to that, but I do think that, because I'm big on the fitness part of things, and I think that is a huge part of how we keep our success intact. It's an extension, and how you do one thing in life is how you do all things. I firmly believe that.
Yep.
So thanks for sharing that.
One fun thing for you, though. One fun thing for you guys. If you're still hanging out with us and listening to this podcast or watching this podcast and you're still with us, do Jennifer a favor. Share this out with one other person. I can tell you, having my own podcast, one of the toughest things in the world is to build your audience. Do her the biggest favor, and I don't care if it's this episode or any other episode she puts out or has put out, share that with one person who needs to hear that message. Because if you will just share that with one person, it's like you walked up and gave her a virtual hug, and it'll mean the absolute world to her. So share this message with one person to help her grow the show.
Thanks, Donnie. Appreciate it.
All the things he just said.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Thank you. This has been awesome, Donnie. So appreciate you coming on here and sharing these nuggets of wisdom with our audience. And keep doing what you're doing. You're doing awesome things. It's fun watching you. I like to see people have success. So, sometimes we got to do the hard things to get us where we need to be, right? It's part of the journey and the process. All right, so we do, of course, want to say to our listeners, if you enjoy our show, please be sure you give us a rating both on iTunes and Facebook. We can't do this without you. And hit that subscribe button. I got that part down pretty good. All right, we want to leave you with a final thought. In order to live the extraordinary, you must start, and every start begins with a decision. You guys take care, be safe, and be kind to one another. We will see you next time.